All right, let's get this started. I'm a little late today because I'm trying to release this tool and I got to get my shit together. Um, all right, so the plan is I have been working for months on an idea, actually since February, that I could essentially vibe code a. That's not the right word. We're not vibe coding anymore. I am coding without looking at all the source. Not vibe coding. And just basically creating a Golang tool that will check all of the things I can think of that you can get in trouble with GitHub Action Security. Mostly settings in the admin for your repo. And this is what I think the unique thing that really not really any of their public tools are doing is they're not checking admin permissions in your repos and your organization and the organization settings and the enterprise settings and the personal settings. All these settings that affect whether or not GitHub Actions are safer and whether or not your posture around what you allow to run in your GitHub Actions. So there's a number of things. A lot of us have heard of a couple of things that you wish you should not do or that you should do. Things like permissions and pin hashing, pinning two hashes more specifically. And let's see, what else? That you shouldn't allow the use of the event called pull request trigger, pull request target, which is a event you can fire off GitHub Actions on. That is a big no-no, especially in public repos, and has always been that way. And it was never meant to be used, really. I think it was incorrectly documented and not adequately warned through the documentation that you should never really use it, even though it's super tempting. So anyway, there's all these things. And then there's all these linters and other things that you can run that may or may not check some certain things. But I just wanted a single tool that would tell me, only related to my GitHub Action settings and my workflows and the jobs in them and the admin settings in the repository, what of those things could I get in trouble with? What risks am I currently opening myself up to in that repo or across all my repos? What if I have 1,000 repos, 5,000 repos? Like, what if I have all these repos? How do I assess their admin settings and their workflow security all at once? Well, I'm trying to build that tool. I'm trying to keep it simple as possible and to not try to replace other linters or other tools that you should also use. So I'm calling it GitHub Actions Security Analyzer. Horrible name, but I just really wanted the acronym GASA. I probably have a better, like gases, just gas, but GASA, GASA, that's what I'm calling it for now, because naming is hard. So we're going to walk through it. I'm actually, the repo is not public yet, and I need to make it public. I need to just do it. It's not really a 1.0 product yet, but I just need to get it out there. GASA. Moon, I'm glad you think it's funny. I'm also trying to be a little silly about it. Gases, GASA, gas. I had a GASS. I was trying to basically you work backwards from the acronym. You make an acronym, and then you try to figure out a name that fits within that, or you make up a completely random name, and then it's some sort of Greek mythology reference or Roman mythology or something, and you try to argue that everything is a warrior or a defender or protector or something related to some old lore from an old civilization. All right, so let me pull some stuff up here. All right, we're going to Put out a couple of social posts so people know what's going on. All right, so I'm here for your questions about GitHub Actions. And while I'm working on this tool, let's see, what else? Are we on Discord? I should pull this up. All right, so here we go. Let's pull up the repo. And then, let's see. Okay. GitHub Action Security. So the real goal of this tool is you could run it as an action, but right now I'm just running it locally. I would say that it's not really ready to be a GitHub action because you probably don't want to scan internal settings of your GitHub repos and then find potential risky behaviors, like maybe you're accidentally allowing non-contributor pull requests to automatically run actions, which is not safe, but is also a setting that you could actually enable. Maybe you've got that set, and that was actually the default. And almost up until maybe within the last 2 months, maybe it's no longer the default, but it was the default. And I have this tool warns you about it. And you maybe don't want that to be a public action result. Like you maybe don't want that to be a check that exposes on the internet that you've got some bad behavior. So I don't really, the plan is that if this thing gets used as a GitHub action, which I think that's probably a better place to put it, if it has concerns, it needs to put those in the security review area of your repo where it's basically for contributors only, so that it's not public knowledge that you have a bad setting. We don't want to add more risk to the repo. Let's see. We don't need these. All right, so this tool started from an idea around the guild. So if you don't know about the guild, this is my new hobby. Basically, we meet every week. We talk about applying AI agent harnesses and AI agents. We talk about how to use those specifically for DevOps, SRE roles, platform engineering, anything related to infrastructure. And how do we operate infrastructure? How do we build our infrastructure? How do we put agents inside of our infrastructure to automate it, to monitor it, to respond to incidents? There's all sorts of opportunities for us to try to automate some of the toil with crazy texting robots. Doesn't mean we put AI everywhere, but it does mean that we can look for opportunities to automate things that were tedious and labor intensive. That's our toil. We all got toil. That's why we have jobs. If we had no toil, it would basically just be a bunch of meetings all day. And we would just talk about work instead of actually getting it done. So a lot of the work we do is very repetitive. That's the nature of operations and infrastructure, is that we want patterns. We want to do them over and over again, just like developers want patterns and consistent behaviors throughout their code. We want the same thing throughout our infrastructure. So we need these patterns, and they don't really exist yet. So the reason we have the guild is we meet weekly and we talk about these problems. And then I go off and make videos like this one, or tools that I think will be helpful to the guild and its members. So go check that out. I'll give you a link. Let's see. My monitors have changed locations for some weird locations, for weird reasons. So now I think this monitor isn't right in front of me. I don't know why it's doing that. All right, here's a link. GASA like NASA. That's a good idea. Yeah, it's futuristic. That's what it inspires. I just could think of GASA was like, I don't know, pouring gas on the flames of of all the security problems we have. I don't know. I was trying to think of an analogy. I don't really have a good one. Doesn't need one. It stands on its own as a tool that you download. I've got to get some of the things I need to do is I need to get releases done, automated, so that I can release pre-built binaries. For now, you have to build it yourself. It's a Golang. And where are we at in it? We're currently working on the makefile, and then actually so is there a build? All right, so the way this works, is it dist? Yeah, all right. Didn't realize. Oops. All right, I need to look at my makefile. This is not what I wanted. All right, so it looks like the AI has already jumped ahead and decided we're on version 1, and that we have builds for multiple see, this is why you always need a terminal with the AI. I always feel like I have to back up to the terminal. Under app. Oh, maybe it's under bin. All right. There we go. All right, so this tool, basically, give it a repo. Sorry for the confusion on my own app. This is essentially a tool that you give it a repo, and it will go. Now, you have to have admin settings, or you don't have to, but if you don't have admin rights to the repo, if you can't look at admin settings, then you can't get really a full picture of what's going on in the repo security settings for GitHub Actions. So this tool uses your local GitHub CLI to authenticate to the GitHub API, so that you don't have to give it a PAT. It just uses your local GH CLI. It technically could be a GH plugin for the CLI, but I figured it just made sense as a standalone tool. Anyway, so we do this on a particular repo, and you can kind of see I've been running some of it here. So this is a repo, and it will pull in a config, which my config ignores a couple of things that I don't care about, and we can go through that later. But because this repo I've already used multiple times, it won't show me any failures. But I can say, show me all the rules that you've scanned, and just show me the successes. Show me everything that you got right. And what it's doing is it's got right now just 7 simple checks, actually, and there's a couple more that I need to add. But these were my biggest 7 sins of the sins of the repo. We all have sins. I had an old team that we worked with. A fun little side note is I worked with a team that we had a tag or a type in Jira tickets called Sins of the Data Center. And I tell this story just because it talked about the culture. It talks about the culture of DevOps. And when you get back to the original origin of what DevOps was supposed to be, one of the original ideas around DevOps was reducing blame and finger pointing. Before we had the concept of DevOps, and this still is actually a behavior that a lot of teams today do. We really had like a very strong blame culture in developer and operations. I kind of sat in the middle. A lot of the jobs I had, I was sitting between the developers and the operators. I was acting as a sysadmin on the ops team, running the ops teams, and the developers I looked at as my allies. Like these were not people that, the reason I had a job was because of these people. They were making the code. We had to run the code. If they didn't make it, we wouldn't have anything to do. So we wouldn't have a job. So I looked at them as my customer. Even before we had DevOps, it just made sense to me that developers were people that I should be friends with. I should understand their work. I should spend time with them, even though I didn't work for them. And so I would often go and meet with the developers and just to understand their problems, try to help them get around some of our operational challenges that we'd put up these walls, these barriers that they could not easily deal with because we were making rules like you have to do this is how you have to release a project. This is where you need to put your document for how I install your app on the servers or whatever. We were pretty basic back then, especially in the Windows world where we didn't have a ton of automation. So I understood that there was this problem where I needed to partner with the DBAs, I needed to partner with the developers, and my team provided backups and infrastructure and security, and we provided the firewall rules to the firewall team. So I looked at us as like the hub of focus of getting all these other teams, security, development, DBAs, like we were the hub where they came together, gave us their problems, and we helped them. We worked with them to devise solutions. This was the origin of DevOps. So the reason that DevOps, one of the reasons that it needed to become as an idea was we needed to break down those them versus us mindsets. We need to break down the walls and stop throwing problems over it and saying, that's your problem, didn't build, it's your problem. Or it works on my machine, so I don't care. You have to fix that production problem. So yeah, that was the origin. But one of the real challenges there was how do we deal with failures? Do we culturally just point fingers at people and say it's your fault that went down, or do we worry less about the blame and we focus on what we can learn, prevent from ever happening again, and all become smarter? I'll learn from the mistake, not blame the person, expect them to fix themselves, as if we all would never make mistakes and we would never make the mistake they made, right? So we reduce the blame game of that. And what that means is we've got to stop blaming. So this tool, like getting back to the tool, what was the point of that rant? The rant was, I don't even know what the rant is. I'll think of it in a minute. It's fine. Everything's fine. The point of that is that this shows me the 7 different sins. Oh, yeah, the story. Okay. Train of thought. Lost and found. I worked on a team like 7 years ago, something like that, 5 years ago. And one of the things we would do is anytime you knew you were cutting a corner, if you knew that you needed to use Terraform to deploy some new stuff and that you should not go to the web interface of AWS to do ClickOps, we know that we shouldn't do that. But if you were in a moment where there was an outage and you knew the fix, but the fix was going to require you 2 hours of working and testing in Terraform, or to fix that thing right now in production and get production back up, you knew the button. You could just click it. You could just click that little button. Things would be fine. Or you could spend 2 hours creating a new Terraform fix, getting a PR review, doing it in staging, but you've got a production outage, so you have a choice to make. Do you become the hero because you could fix it in 5 minutes, or do you tell everybody it's going to take 2 hours of going through the pomp and circumstance and ceremony of a PR? So the Jira ticket type, thank you. How do I say that? Azure? I'm gonna say Azure, like Azure. Maybe the G is soft. Azure. Yeah, just like it's the Jira ticket type. Thank you. So the Jira ticket type was called Sins of the Data Center. And it allowed us to put backlog tickets of mistakes we knew we were making in the moment that we needed to account for later. It was basically a code smell or an infrastructure smell of things we knew that weren't ideal or perfect, that we were accepting the risk for today, and that later we may pay for that sin through work. And it was a fantastic thing because it gave us all permission to, instead of like saying to the team, "Hey, I did a thing. I did a click ops thing. We're gonna have to fix it with Terraform later, and then we may regret it because it might actually like destroy the thing we changed and then revert it and blah blah blah." Like, it could be a problem. But I got production working, like we're back up and running. Everybody should be happy about that. And so we would make a ticket that would describe that, that exact thing we just did that was a sin. But it was giving us permission rather than to be worried about the blame, be worried that in the future someone was going to find out what we did that was technically against policy and wrong. It allowed us in the moment to just declare, yeah, I maybe didn't make a mistake, but I know that I did a thing that was bad. Yeah, shame on me. Slap my hand. But we're gonna deal with it later. I won't forget it. And then once a month we would actually go through the sins of the data center. We'd pull out 5 or 10 and try to fix them and improve the system. And so sins of the data center. So that's back to my repo where this thing is not perfect, and it's sort of one of the things that it can do is it kind of can make you realize there's a lot of misconfiguration, a lot of inconsistent configuration, especially if you do this across an organization org-wide, and it will highlight all the potential problems that you might have that you should go fix. And you maybe don't want to make these sins public, but you'll realize that you have decade-old repositories that you've never even gone and looked at the settings in 5-10 years. You've not looked at these settings, and those settings are now outdated. I'll give you that. So one of the things that GitHub does, and we'll look through this in a minute, is GitHub is changing things for new repositories first. So if you create a new repository, the GitHub Actions security page, as of last week, I don't know if it's true this week, but as of last week, a new repository had different settings than an existing repository. Not just different defaults, different settings. Because GitHub is trying to move the security, they're finding security risks, trying to mitigate those, but not break existing work, because I don't think GitHub needs any more bad news right now. So even though honestly, we might all forgive them if they broke a little bit of stuff, which was clearly risky behavior and then risk of you just being attacked and successfully hacked, like, they should probably break that, or at least notify us that they will break it, and then break it. But instead of doing that, they're changing the defaults for new repositories, and they're to the point now where they're actually changing the settings, which is a little crazy, because now I've got 2 repos that if I look at them side by side, the pages of the admin settings look different. And I didn't realize this until I created a new repo last week, and it didn't have the same setting that I'm used to going in and setting. So some sort of postmortem ticket. Exactly. That's exactly what that was. Oscar. Yeah. The first one was correct. Well, now I don't even remember what the first one was. So we'll just say Oscar. All right. So we're going to walk through running this. So this is interesting. Like, there's 7 rules. By the way, we're setting up a workshop. I'm going to go through each one of these in July. We're going to have a workshop with ChainGuard, and we're going to go into great detail on how each one of these affects your repo, how each one of these behaviors can really hurt you. And so for this particular repo that I scanned, this is the command I scanned. I typed GASA run, the repo name, and then I said success because I want it to show me all the rules even though they pass. By default, it's only going to show me the things that fail. And I can do this on multiple repos. I can give it a list. I can give it a CSV file, or basically a list of repos in a file. Or I can scan the entire user or organization. So we can do some really obvious stuff. And one of the things it'll do is it'll give you the rule name if you failed. it'll give you the reason it failed and then the way to possibly fix it. If it's possible for it to give you a URL to the fix, it'll give you that. It has built-in documentation in Markdown files in the repository, so we can go in and understand the rule set. In theory, there will be more rules over time, but actually, let's go into docs. I need to zoom in. So if we go into docs, we can see there's a set of rules, and like the pull request target is probably the most common right now that people are aware of. This is a big no-no. You do not want to really ever use this this setting. There's like a 1% chance that this setting is actually safe to use. It is in a very unique scenario where you give it no permissions, you give it read-only permissions in the workflow, and then you let this thing run. It should not take in input from any tickets or issues. It should not be able to look at user-provided text because there's potential for injection. And so it goes through and it basically says, yeah, this is why you shouldn't do it, why this matters, a bad example, a good example, and runs you through reference links to all these behaviors. So let's look at it. So besides all these rules, because we could walk through these rules, one of the nice things it can do, one of the pretty cool things it can do is, thanks to the magic of AI, it's very easy and trivial to give it a template, an HTML template to use to run this. So I can do something like, actually let's do a format HTML, and then I'm going to run it on this repo, this actual repo, and then I'm going to put it into an HTML file so that we can look at that report. And then I'm going to open that file. Oh, that's boring. Let's do it again. Let's do success. Let's show that. Okay. So now, sorry for the flashbang. I need to get a dark mode setting for this. So this is just an HTML representation of the output, and this isn't that impressive. I mean, it's just the same thing I'm seeing in the console. But one of the things that we can do from this is I can start doing bulk actions, and not bulk GitHub actions, but I can do bulk scans. And see, Oscar, wasn't that the weakness used in the TAN stack supply chain attack? Yeah, yes. So the pull request target is simply, there's dozens of events in GitHub that you can put in a GitHub action that will allow the workflow to kick off based on that event, because GitHub Actions is an event-driven system. And pull request target is the most dangerous one because it lets anyone who gives you a pull request, it will run your GitHub action, the one that's set up for that event. It'll run that entire workflow for that PR on their code, but do it in your repo with your secrets and all the access that your GitHub token has, which is super risky. It's immediately obvious to me that sounds like a bad behavior. Untrusted code running with my secrets, and that's what's happening to a lot of these repos, is their secrets are getting exfilled out of GitHub because someone can just run a scanner. They can just change your code with a PR that, you know, this is what the attacks were doing over the last year. The Shai Hulud and I think several of the other ones, they were all giving a PR to repositories that they did not own, and they would change the code and put in a script, and that script would pull in all secrets that it sees inside the runner. It would then base64 encode those a couple of times or encrypt them, basically a way to trick any of the secret scanners that GitHub has. And GitHub has a decent security scanner that will look for any secrets in the text output and then try to protect the text output so that your logs don't contain secrets. Well, that's great. But all you have to do is just a couple of tricks. You know, you can just zip them up in a file. You can base64 encode them. You can encrypt them somehow. And then they'll show up in the logs because the scanner doesn't detect that. Some scanners will actually try to de-encode base64, but then all you got to do is base64 to base64. Like you just do it a couple of times, whatever that scanner or security protection mechanism is, you just base64 encode it one more time than that thing does. And mostly those things won't de-encode base64 over and over and over again because of a denial of service potential risk. So they won't do that because you could just create an infinite loop to denial of service things. So they only do it once, maybe twice if they're lucky, which means that your hack only really has to, encode a couple of times, which adds an extra half a second to the processing time, right? It's nothing. But it's a very easy technique to exfil anything, as long as it fits in this text string of whatever you're trying to put the base64 in. So that's how all these hacks are happening. That's one of the most common ways these hacks are happening with the pull request target. It's a horrible thing. The reason so many people do it is because they want PRs to have a minimum quality check before they bother with human review. Seems like an innocent thing. Or they're going to look at an issue and tag it with a certain label, or they're going to put in a comment that says, hey, your issue doesn't meet our minimum requirements for filing a bug issue. All these things that would automatically run on external input. It seems like a legit thing. Seems like a thing we'd want. But the problem is what you're essentially allowing by default here is you're allowing untrusted text to potentially prompt inject if you're using AI. So it's doubly risky to do this with AI because then you could do a prompt injection. So this one is like the worst behavior. It's the red flag. Sadly, it's also in the public file. So if you have a public repo and you have a YAML file for a GitHub workflow and you're putting pull request target in there, all the hackers have to do is scan every public repo for these workflows and look for that name. Basically, they just do a public scan for pull request target. Then they just use search and they find every open source repo that has that. And then they give you PRs. They see if it'll run, because if you'll run that PR on the action, if you run the actions on that PR, they might have a bad script in there. And that's all it took. That's all it took to hack, I don't know, 1/10 of GitHub, to expose potentially hundreds of thousands of people. I believe that over 100,000 developer accounts have been exposed to this risk and been hacked with NPM packages and GitHub actions. I tried to do a rough back of the napkin count a month or two ago, and I think that it's well over 100,000 successful attacks at this point. TCB. I have that. There's a dark mode also for Safari. There's a really, really good plugin for Safari. I know no one really probably uses Safari that watches this channel, but it does a really good job of applying a text. It detects whether there's light, and then it basically inverts colors, inverts everything in every color. And it does a really, really good job, but I haven't found a really solid good one for Chrome to do it on regular websites. But I have it in Safari. I think it's possibly actually maybe the same creator as the one for Firefox, but I didn't find one for Chrome. But regardless, like, I just need to go in and I just need to have it make this. Let's see. Let's just have it create it. Please, let's see, for the HTML output template, please add a dark mode to complement the existing light mode and also support system automatic swapping of the themes, and to put all of this inside the HTML file. Yeah, all right, so we'll fix that. So, all right, so this is what we're talking about. Like, we've got this neat list, but what I'm excited about is I can do this across an organization. So what we do here is I just run this tool, assuming I didn't break it. And if you look at the help, we have a batch command. So the batch scans multiple repositories. So now I can do batch, and then let's see, what's the, I forgot what the, yeah, so like this one right here. So GASA batch, the org or the user account name, format HTML output, and so that's the way I can get a giant big output. So let's just do format HTML. Oh, we have output. Yeah, so it's going to write the file. Yeah, so GASA batch Brett Fisher HTML format output into a specific file, and that's going to cook. So 88 repositories. That's actually low. I wonder if it's only doing public repositories. I might need to look into that. But it's going to go through and it's summarizing here on screen while it's writing the HTML file. Oh, I didn't rewrite the file. All right, so I need to rewrite that particular one. Well, that was actually pretty fast. Faster than I expected. Okay. Let me try. Let's run that one again so I can test that file. All right, so look at this report. What's up, Omer? Native dark mode is better, for sure. Yeah, that's why Oscar, for the dark mode in Safari, that plugin is so good that I think like 99.9% of sites are perfect, and it works on mobile Safari, so it can be a plugin if you're an iOS user. The mobile Safari browser will also auto dark mode websites, and then you can have an allow or deny list. So like sites that maybe don't work, like maybe apps like Gmail or something like that, you can just select it. It's a fantastic little app. I should probably just have it remade as my own extension. I should probably just see if the source code, I think it's because it's free, so maybe it's public source code, and maybe just have an AI create my own extension to do it, because I like the idea of opting in. Like when a site is white, I just click a button and it automatically goes dark, and then it sort of adds it to an allow list that for that website it's going to apply this other template. Let's see, did this work? Did this work? Oh, it's not working. Please fix. All right, so the point here is, if we go back to my, this is the cool part. Honestly, this is the whole This is the whole shebang. This is, to me, the most useful thing. Now, this tool, because I'm being super cautious with this and I'm a little scared, I'm not implementing yet in like this V1, I'm not implementing bulk fixing. Like, I don't want this to go through and change admin settings in every repository of an organization unless I'm sure a couple of things are true. One, it absolutely will not break anything. And two, there's a potential to actually roll back. Like maybe it logs and it records the existing setting. It records the fact that it changed it to a new setting, and then it potentially allows to roll back in case you break something, because there is a likelihood that if you change organizational or repo-based settings around permissions, you will possibly break workflows from running, particularly the ones that I want you to set, because those settings will turn off like default permissions essentially, or they'll lock down default permissions and deny more things from running if you don't have your workflow set up correctly. So this report gives me all of my repositories. I don't yet have the proper coloring here. Like for high things that are marked as high don't make these buttons, these little icons, red, and they should. I'm kind of going back and forth on how I'm grading these risks. They're just my own opinions. This is really just an opinionated scanner. That's why I wanted it. I needed something that was very opinionated for what I believe to be safe and secure behaviors in GitHub Actions, rather than there's a lot of stuff out there that might just, it doesn't give you strong opinions. It just expects you to make rules. There are definitely tools that help you automate in bulk repo settings. A lot of people use this to standardize settings across repositories, whether that's like label syncing every repo to have the same label config or the same branch protection rules, stuff like that you might want to do that aren't org level settings, or maybe you don't have org level rights, so you just need to automate stuff across a bunch of repositories. So there's a lot of tools that are like that, but you have to go create the rules. And so they're not really meant for security scanning. This is meant for very specific 7 different settings, 7 different behaviors that you should follow. And it just flags each repository. So I can click on each repository. If there's no findings, it doesn't list the successes. This by default only lists the denials. So the green ones here are basically empty. And in fact, I almost feel like I need a button that just says, like, don't even show these, don't even list that they're here. But at least it's showing you that they were scanned. And so I can go through each repository, see the risk. So for example, this one, Awesome Swarm, I can go to the repo here. It gives me a link to the repo. But the actual fix is, in this particular one, the fix is for me to edit a file. So I could go look at the docs of why this rule is relevant. And I can read the documentation on why this rule matters. And then I can link here. It'll take me directly to the line in the file that I need to fix. So then I could just come in here, and this particular rule, is all about SHA pinning the actions that you are using in your workflows. This will protect you from multiple hacks that have happened across GitHub over the last year, and it will do essentially what we should be doing everywhere, which is if I'm using someone else's code, particularly if it's untrusted code and not code that my team made, the untrusted code needs to be pinned to a specific commit so that any time that version changes, I can be sure that someone didn't hack. Because by default, in 2026, a GitHub repo by default, even a new repo, will allow you to overwrite tags, GitHub or Git tags, with a different commit. Now, this is kind of a no-no. We really don't want this behavior. But you can do this on GitHub Actions. You can do this on Docker Hub. You can do this on NPM. It's a really bad behavior, but you can now, in all these different systems, you can opt in to say never allow a Git tag or a version. Once a SymVer has been released, that tag can never be reused. And that's the behavior we want. But here's the thing. I can't tell that repo that I'm using that's a behavior of the provider. That's a behavior that the maintainers have to implement. I can't control that, and I don't even know if they set it. This is one of the other risky behaviors, is we don't actually understand the security posture of other GitHub repos that we're using. And that's what's happening, is all of these repos are getting attacked in open source successfully, Because even if we wanted to audit that repo, the only things we can really audit are the security of the source code, not the security of the repo. And the repo and the workflows in it are the things that are getting attacked. It's not the source code that makes these GitHub repos so dangerous. It's that the admin settings that we can't see are wrong, or the public workflow is wrong, and we can see that, and so can the hackers. So this accounts for both. In this case, this is a public thing. So someone could say, if this was someone else's source code, if I'm an attacker and I saw that like everybody's using this particular GitHub action, and maybe this GitHub action is made by Joe Schmo, and Joe Schmo puts it up in his repo, and if I don't SHA-pin this, then a couple of things can happen. One is it's possible, it's very much likely, it's probably 99% likely that that person has not clicked the admin setting. And let me show you the admin setting. That admin setting is enable release immunity. Not checked by default, and almost every repo on GitHub probably has not checked it. Because you get nervous. You don't even know what that means. Like, you say disable assets and tags from being modified once a release is published. So like that sounds like something like it might break something, right? So you don't check it unless you really know what you're doing. You don't check it. Now, if you're not doing releases, actual GitHub releases, this thing does nothing. But if you check it, you're preventing the risky behavior. But this setting isn't public, so I can't see it as a consumer, and I don't know if their behaviors are safe. So the attacker doesn't know either. So the attacker's job at this point is to go try to make a PR against the repo that publishes the action that I'm using. So they will issue a PR and see if some of these behaviors can be exploited. And this isn't necessarily a PR exploit, but if I'm able to successfully get into the GitHub Actions through one of the other ways to exploit it, then I could test this by trying to overwrite a GitHub release that's already been out for a while. And this has also been a successful attack multiple times over the last year. This is how NPM releases get attacked, is where these aren't actually immutable by default. Most people are not locking down. They don't even understand these settings, much less realize that they're necessary to protect against attacks. Because they haven't been attacked before, it's kind of like, I think, anything in our lives. It's like, we all used the same password 20 years ago for every website until that started to get exploited. And then we started to realize that's a really bad security posture. So then we started using password managers to create unique passwords for every website because that was the new way to protect yourself. 20 years ago, we were telling everybody, you need a strong password. Well, and that was true. We all needed stronger passwords. But what was the real problem was that password from Walmart or Home Depot or whatever website I went to is also the same password to my email. It's also the same password to my Azure account or my AWS account or my Amazon account. And so when the easiest website to attack gets attacked and the hackers get that password, they would just try everything else. And I got attacked that way. I had my Skype account taken over because that password was a reused password a long, long time ago when Skype was still a thing. And I don't know, my JC Penney website account or what, my store, my Macy's, store account, my Barnes and Noble login was the same password as my Skype in 1999 or 2005 or whatever. And then one of them got hacked, and so the hackers just tried that password everywhere, and were able to get into my Skype account. So we know that is a bad behavior, but we only know it because we were all getting exploited. Once I got attacked, I realized that I had to do a full audit of all my passwords. This is the same sort of scenario. We're all in this scenario where we don't even realize the 1,000 ways we can get attacked until we are actually successfully hacked. And then we completely change our behaviors. But because we haven't all been exploited in this way, we don't realize that if I go into the actions settings of my account, that it's not requiring all actions to be pinned. It's not requiring that this is the default. which means external contributors could have automatic PRs automatically, like could have PRs with automatic actions running against that external untrusted code with potentially my passwords if I use pull request target. So this was the default setting. This was a default setting not too long ago, which gives every GitHub action workflow full right to everything by default, which is insane. And these were all defaults. So GitHub is starting to change defaults, but they're not actually changing everyone's repos. So we have to go change those. It's our job now. So if we go look at this repo, and if I bring up a different one, so if I bring up these two, let's see. And then, no. Oh, no, I don't want that. Here we go. Ooh. All right, so I'm going to have to zoom out on this to make sense. Okay, so if I go look at this new repo, so I think this is a repo I just created in the last week. No, that's not it. There's another one. Sort, I can't sort by created date? Oh, come on. Maybe it's this one. Okay. This is the weird part. Look at how different these pages are. This is the same page. This is a private repo though. Maybe I need to make it public. Let me make a new public repo. New repository. Public, no template, no license, jumpstart, no prompt. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the settings, actions, general. All right, 2 public repositories, 1 old, 1 new. Oh! They're the same. So my differences were between a public and a private. Doggone it. That was my difference. I was confused. Okay, but what you can see is the defaults are different. So when on the right is an old repo. On the right, the default settings a year ago, let's say 2-3 years ago, were this. So this setting is still insanely the default. I cannot believe this is the default. External contributors should always require manual approval of GitHub Actions. Always, always, always. Never trust an external contributor. If you trust them, they should become a contributor. You should give them permissions to the repo. Give them proper authority to help with certain repo functions. But if they're external, to me that means untrusted. Like, I treat them all the same. I have one setting for them. This is the only setting I get. And I never want to automatically run GitHub Actions on their PR code. Never, never, never. So I need to default to this. So it was set to this. It needs to be the bottom one. So this is one of the rules that my GASA tool will scan. It will scan the repo setting for that particular setting and make sure, and basically makes sure that you have changed the setting from the default. The next one, this is luckily locked down now, but years ago, the default was read and write for every GitHub workflow by default. It gets all complete write access to everything in the repo, which was a horrible decision and this shouldn't even be an option. This should not even be a thing we can change in the admin. This should be a thing that we have to enforce inside of the GitHub workflow. And I feel like so many lessons of the past in product security, if you're someone who deals with product, one of the real challenges, Docker dealt with this early days, and we're still paying for this with Docker, with the security of the images in GitHub. Sorry, in Docker Hub. Those images, notably, if you just try to use the default Python image, very insecure image. Hundreds of security patches needed for that image. And the reason is they opted for easy. They opted for making it easy for us to onboard and try it out and use it. That was the decision. They went for usability over security, and ever since then, we've all been paying for it on the internet. In this case, GitHub did the same thing. They wanted GitHub Actions to be easy to get started with and to not require us on day one to hard code permissions. So the reason that exists, the setting even exists, is because by default, originally when GitHub Actions started, every GitHub workflow had full read and write on everything in the repo. That means it could make commits. It could get all the secrets. It could access all the packages. It could write packages to that project. It could do all sorts of stuff. And then you could set it to default read only. I really wish there was a setting here, and I've been wishing, and I'm not sure if it's ever going to happen, but I wish the default setting was none. Like, you don't treat me like an IAM policy. Treat me like a security group. Treat me like any other permissions-based model where the default is no rights at all. I have to be explicit with every GitHub workflow. That's what I want, but I can't. There's no setting for it. So the only way to go none is that in your GitHub action, you have to put in a permissions block that is empty. And that is how you set to none. And most workflows can't use none because they need to at least clone the repo, which is fair. So then you give read to content. That's the one security permission you give. And that's what this is. But even this setting gives you read to the repository and the packages. Arguably, maybe not that risky, because if you can run a GitHub action. But the wild thing is like this setting right here, along with this, I think that these two, this default setting and this default setting still open me up to risk, because it allows me to make a PR that can still read the secrets. Even though I can't change things, I can still access secrets. And those secrets can probably change things. So it's a wild permissions model that really has so many footguns set to it. There is no safe default that is truly zero lockdown, except for this one setting up at the top. If you just are so paranoid by GitHub Actions on public repos, you click this, disable actions altogether. And then every other setting in here won't matter. Like, honestly, when I check that, I don't know why it doesn't just gray everything else out, because nothing else will matter. Nothing else will run. It's completely disabling all the features of GitHub Actions. So to me, that's another UI challenge, is like when I do that, this thing isn't smart. This thing doesn't warn me when I set things to non-defaults. It doesn't tell me there are new defaults that I should change my behavior for. There are so many opportunities for improvement here. I could probably write a thesis about the complexities and the problems and the UX failures of one page on GitHub. And if we could really refine this down so that a couple of things could happen, which I will tell you, like, GitHub should hire me. They should bring me on. I will run a little team, and we're only our team, the team of 3. We will just do nothing but focus on this page, and we will improve the UI, the UX, the functionality of this page to help people make the right choices. At the top of this page, there needs to be an indicator, a banner, arguably on every settings page that involves anything with security, that tells me, 1, what settings on this page are not the defaults? 2, what settings on this page are risky for security in this repository? And which ones of those are set in a way that are increasing my risk? Because if I go and say, allow all actions, and then require approval for first time, which is risky, and then read write, which is risky. Like if I allow all these things, and then I also allow this, this is a pretty risky posture. But these settings, almost all of them, I've changed this from the default. This one still is the default, even though it's risky. This one has been changed from the default. And it should tell me that. It should somehow clue me in that there are dangers here, that I've done bad things, and that I've sinned the GitHub. The GitHub sins. But there's no indicator. There's nothing that helps me know that I should change something, which is why I made the tool. Okay? That's why I made it. All right, so let's just go make this GitHub repo public, and we will improve things as we go. So we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We don't need projects for now. I am not going to allow only collaborators are going to do pull requests because I don't need vibe coded PRs. I do enough of that myself. Yep. Release immunity, immutability, not immunity. We don't need immunity. We just need immutability. All right, so all those settings are changed. Change visibility. Actually, what we're going to do, I am not, actually we don't want wikis either. I actually think I need to do something first before we change that. Can I make it for Chromium too? Yes, Oscar. Back to the light dark mode extension, which there's probably 1,000 of now. I haven't looked recently, but now that everybody's vibe coding Chrome extensions, okay. So question: I believe a Chrome extension works on all Chromium browsers. I use Dia. I don't use Chrome directly. I use Dia, and that's technically a Chromium browser. And I use every extension from the Chrome extension store. So, I mean, I can use any of them. So, like in here, I can go to the normal extension store. So, is there a difference between Chrome and Chromium extensions? I've never made one, so I don't actually know. You tell me. I'm guessing they're the same and they work because everyone else's I've used work. Okay, so the thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to actually delete this repository and recreate it. Case matters. All right, we're going to generate that report one last time, by the way. It's still not working. The AI is hallucinating. The AI is misbehaving. All right, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to recreate this as a repo. Yeah, I don't want my Git history, essentially, because I've been working on it for months, and I'm not exactly sure if anything was committed incorrectly. So I'm going to double check. Make file rules. All right. GASA. I got the README. I got the plan. I got the make file. I don't know why. I think I made a mistake here. Unstage. Okay. I think this is all correct. Approve the commit and push it. Oh, we need to actually GitHub repo create. Remote origin push. We don't want it private. Okay. We're doing it that way. And it's public. All right. Here you go, people. It's kind of a shit show at the moment, but it exists. Let's zoom in here so this is not so crazy. All right. I actually published it. I didn't think I was going to do that today, but I think it's ready enough. All right. Catching up on chat. Catching up on chat. Does GASA also support some sort of ignore file? Yes, it's called the GASA.yaml. And as we can see here, this is the sample config, and you can ignore rules. You can actually override rules to change their severity. And then there are also config scenarios where this is a very specific one. So yeah, then there's, oh, so I can suppress rules. Such built-in rules should be run by default. If includes omitted, all built-in rules are eligible to run. Okay, so see, AI generated this. So you can do either include or exclude. I think I need to have a conversation around exclude versus suppression. Suppress known and reviewed findings. You can scope suppressions by rule, finding ID, and or path. Okay, so this is a little more specific. This is basically saying for this particular file, don't run this rule. So, for example, if I have an old workflow that doesn't have permissions that I'm not allowed to change them on, but I don't want it to be flagged in the warning, I can say don't, for this particular rule on this particular file, don't flag it. So I guess that's similar to exclude up here. It should probably, maybe I should move it up. But this part is actually unique. This is the config part where you can say, this one right here, these are very specific conditions that I needed to decide. I didn't want to make a decision for you. So I was like, well, the default will be reasonable, but you'll be able to override it. And one of these behaviors that I use is if you're using reusable GitHub action workflows. So reusable means that the main YAML is in a different repo that you control, usually, ideally, and then you're reusing all the complexity of that workflow in a different repo that you call it from. So you have the called repo, the one you made, and then the calling repo. And in the calling repo, the way that I do that is I don't shop in to my other repo. Hear me out. If I have 100 repos and I want to manage the linting or the security image scanner for Docker, if I want that to run in all repos, and one way you could do that is you make an org-based rule. So you could put in the org and say on all repos, or here's a set of repos. You could manage it at the org. That's one way to do it. But another way to do it is I create my reusable workflow repo. And then for my other repos that I want to opt in to that workflow, I go to them and I create a calling workflow. It's very small. And it will only have a couple lines in it that say, hey, the one you actually need to run, the workflow, it's over in a different repo. So I don't need to shop in both places because I manage the pinning and the control of the complexity of that workflow is all managed in the centralized repo. So that's where I do my shop pinning, because that workflow might have 20 steps to it, and each step is shop pinning, shop pinning, shop pinning. So I'm secure. But for my other repos, all I'm going to do is pin to main. So that means whatever the centralized repo's version is, they all use that version. And because otherwise, the minute I change the centralized version, I now have to go change with PRs 100 different repos, which to me is ridiculous. Like that would need a lot of, because at that point I can't manually verify and change anyway. So I'm just going to create a tool that automatically PRs them all, which why? Then why do that? Why not just manage it centrally? So the behavior that I use and recommend is that when I'm from my own repo to my own repo, if I'm calling my own trusted code, then the centralized repo is where I shop in. In my other repos, I just pin to the branch. And that is what this rule config says, is if I'm using a reusable workflow and I'm calling another one, allow me to not shop in. This is a pretty flexible approach that a lot of other scanners like Zizmore, if you're familiar, it's a really great GitHub Action Scanner that you should always be using if you're ever using. This is a static analysis tool. It's basically a really fancy linter. It particularly focuses on security and bad behaviors. I use it in all of my linting for all of my repos. And I also use the action lint. So action lint is sort of the de facto standard for all linting of GitHub Actions. It overlaps with Zizmore, but they both have things that the other one doesn't do. The action lint is more linting. The Zizmore is more analysis of bad behavior, slightly but overlapping different focuses. And so this is going to do more linting, YAML linting, stuff like that. So if I'm doing this, I don't feel like I need an extra YAML linter, although I probably would just run one anyway. But this one feels like it's enough, whereas Zizmore is much more leans into the security and bad configurations. This one is more focused on, is it technically correct YAML for a GitHub Actions syntax. So they're both. I just use them both, and you're going to have to configure both, and you're going to have to do. So now you technically have a third one. Man, we really need to get that fixed. I don't know why it's so hard to do light and dark mode for the agent. Did you really fix it? Did you fix it? Okay, so now I should see it in the top right. Am I going to believe you? I don't know. I don't know if I should believe you. Hey. Okay. There we go. No more flashbangs. All right, so we're going to do the public scan again of the repo. So I'm going to scan all my repos again. Hopefully I won't hit my GitHub API limit. That's another reason we're using the GitHub API for this is you want to be logged in so that you don't hit the GitHub API limits, which are pretty strict. Let's see. This is the GASA report. Closing that. Yeah. All right. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, definitely. A GitLab scanner would be a whole different thing, right? Because these are so specific to GitHub. You know, like these linters and all these other things that it's doing, they wouldn't apply to anything from GitLab. So GitLab would be a completely different scanner. And also, who knows if GitLab even needs it? I mean, I'm not a GitLab person, so who knows if their DevOps tool for running workflows is susceptible to some of these behaviors and settings. I mean, it's just going to be a completely different situation. So that's why I was so focused on this being a very focused tool, because we don't need yet another linter. We don't need like an Omni tool. What we need is right now is the security problem is GitHub. It is the people's misconfigurations of their own GitHub. That's the problem we're having in supply chain security right now. It's the biggest attack vector besides NPM. Like they're kind of tied 50-50 for which one's going to be exploited next. So I wanted a tool that was super focused there. I need to do a screenshot now that we have dark mode. All right, so we've done another scan. Let's open that up, and now you'll see my repo so you can see all these repositories, right? Just endless amounts of old repos I have, most of them public, that all say the same thing. They say I've got high, medium, I've got default workflow permissions are read write because that's the default setting in the repo, and it's bad, bad, bad. The fork PR workflows do not require approval from all bad, bad, bad because that's the default. Like these are basically all default settings. So the next iteration, like V2 of this tool, would have a fix, and it could maybe allow you to fix these rules by simply swapping the bit. The problem is this one doesn't have a problem where it breaks things. This one right here, if you bulk changed it, would break things, because if your defaults in your admins are read-write permissions to GitHub Actions, and you change it to read-only, then a lot of those workflows that are running now automatically all the time on PRs, they would not run until you added permissions to them, which means you would have to PR those workflows. So before you change this setting, I probably should put a warning in here. In fact, let me make a note. We need a note. Oops. New features and fixes. We're just going to make an issue in the repo because that's how we do things now that it's open source. Um, warn in, let's see, what's this called? This is the fork PR contributor approval setting. In the GitHub Actions settings, if we change from read write to read permissions by default, then any workflow that requires write permissions but doesn't yet have its own permissions block will be broken and not successfully run if the admin setting is changed first. So the warning or disclaimer in the docs, as well as the output guidance from a failed check, should indicate or warn that if they change the admin setting, that they must go verify all their workflows have manual permission blocks by default. And I'm actually realizing that in order to do that, that's not the correct one. This is the wrong file. We want this rule, default workflow permissions. Warn in this read write to read permissions for that's a really long run-on sentence, but we'll set it. All right, so if we change this, we first need, there's another rule we need to worry about. Permissions. Workflow. All right. I can't seem to find that particular setting. So we need to go to the code and look up that rule. So under docs, rules, workflow permissions. This is the rule. So if we go to the report, that, yeah. So I think I have a broken rule, because one of the rules is to go look at all your workflows, look in the files themselves, and make sure that there is a permissions block in every workflow. I have a hard time believing that 100% of my workflows have that setting. Maybe I'm really that good. Maybe I'm that good. So in the issue, yeah, so this is the issue that we need to fix. We also have another issue here. In the batch HTML report, repo icons should be red if any high are triggered. Currently, we only see green or yellow icons for the repo list. So we need the icons to match the highest severity of rules found in that repo. All right, so here's the fun part. If we are using Copilot, let's see. Dark mode. So instead of doing this locally on my machine, so I'm just pushing a change, we're going to have some fun with Copilot and assign in Copilot, let's go Cloud Agent, Custom Agent. Let's see. Is the Custom Agent enabled? Okay, I'm going to leave it like that, and then we're going to go change some of the default settings real quick for this repo. Release immutability. We don't want wikis. I do want it sponsorship. Do like discussions. Don't need projects. Collaborators only. Delete head branches. These are all my defaults. Always suggest updating pull request branches. Yep. Okay. Cool. Okay, now that my agents is here, let's just assign to agent. Improve this documentation. Documentation in both the docs markdown as well as the output of a failed check. Agent is Copilot. I'm going to do Claude. Yep. And then also, we're going to do the same thing, assign it. All right. And then I can go and watch these guys work. So that I'll get, wonder why it just says new task. Doesn't actually say the right thing. All right, so we're just gonna let those cook. What other questions do we have? Oh, David, does the fork command clean the local git index? Is that a GH command? I'm not sure what that question pertains to. Sorry, I was a little late on seeing that one. Does the fork command? Oh, sorry. So on my CLI, fork is a GUI for me. I prefer, because I don't look at the diffs in the code the TUIs, and I'd like to do my Git work from a GUI. I've just gravitated to that over the years because I was tired of learning all the new Git commands over the years every time we changed the way we were doing things with Git. So I use fork Git GUI. It's a great client. It is not free. I think it costs money. Yeah, $60. But I bought it, gosh, 8 years ago, and it's been fantastic ever since. I know a lot of people that use it. And the CLI to just launch it is called fork. So sorry, should have explained that. But it gives me all sorts of abilities. Like I do my merge conflict editing in here. I also sometimes do it in NeoVim, but it just depends on whether I'm in a GUI mode or in a shell mode. I go back and forth. And I like some of the things it can do between rebasing and looking at image diffs and history. I mean, there's lots of, you can use VS Code. There's lots of ways to do it. I just, years and years ago, I just kind of wanted a dedicated tool, and it lets me hop between projects really quickly to kind of manage what work I haven't committed, because like in a given day, I might leave for lunch, and this is kind of pre-AI, but I might leave for lunch and then have a whole bunch of changes that need to go into commits across different project repos. And I didn't really have an easy way to manage all that before, or to know which ones needed to commit and which ones were out of date, which ones needed to be pulled because there's some upstream changes. And Fork does all that. Like, it keeps track of all that status of across the different repositories. And you can kind of see in here, they have like each repo is its own tab. So I've usually got at least a dozen or 2 dozen tabs open in the app. But I've used it, and it's pretty great. It also lets me do little things like, with a keyboard shortcut, I can jump right to the repo straight from here. It'll open up the repo. It'll let me, see these little indicators right there. It lets me see that there's all sorts of, basically my local clones are outdated across different repos that I need in different branches. So I can see all that stuff in a single screen. You can do a lot of this in VS Code, but you usually end up needing a couple of different extensions. And I don't even use VS Code anymore, so that's not a thing. So yeah, that's Fork. I receive no money from them, but I should, because I talk about them every once in a while. All right, any other questions on GASA? I think the next big thing for me is to test a GitHub action workflow for getting a release out. I need to be able to get the first version to actually start testing it. And that's something I'm going to do today. So yeah, congrats to me. I released a piece of open source that so far nobody cares about, but hopefully someone will find it useful. And I will send you all one last click of the link to the repo. David says it looks like a source tree. Yeah, source tree back in the day, which is still a thing, I think, right? So anyway, in case you weren't around earlier, the reason that I'm creating this GASA tool is because I make GitHub Actions courses, and I have something called the GitHub. It's not called that. It's called the Agentic DevOps Guild. You'd think I don't say this 100 times a day, but I have a group that there's people in chat that are actually part of this group. So if you didn't know, this is a membership program that we meet weekly. We talk about AI and its effect on DevOps and platform engineering and all things ops and infrastructure. And it includes courses and other benefits. You can check it out on my website. I will also put that. Thanks, Oscar. I do hope I get lots of people that like it. And the guild is something that I'm excited about. I work on it every week. So it comes with a couple of courses out of the box that I'm building. One of them on GitHub Actions, and one is on how to use AI, how to set up your AI stuff for DevOps, essentially. And it's really, at this point, it's just teaching the core principles of agent harnesses and skills and all that kind of stuff that you're going to need as foundational understanding before you start to automate your DevOps with AI. And so there's courses coming. We meet weekly. You can kind of see down here. You can kind of see some of the things we've been doing. I'm kind of trying to keep a little log of activities in the guild. And we've got workshops coming. We've got this GASA tool is a direct output of the guild, and it's going to have its own dedicated workshop in July, where we're going to step through each one of the rules. I'm going to talk to you about how you lock these things down, and then we're going to run through the tool and talk about how to make it better. So hopefully by then it maybe can fix things in bulk. That'd be pretty cool. So hopefully this tool catches on, not because I care that it's popular, but what I really want is this. What I need is for at least the people in my world to start securing their GitHub Actions. If major companies like Aqua Security have improperly configured GitHub Actions on their security scanning repo for their security scanning tool, and that thing isn't locked down properly because someone didn't know what they were doing, then we need help. If they can't do it right, we need help. I'm trying to provide the help here. That's why I didn't want to sell this thing. I wanted to give it out because right now everyone needs a little bit of help with their GitHub Action security. They need a little bit of improvement. And I'm here to provide it. I can't consult to everybody in the world. I can't provide, I don't have the opportunity to be 10 million different consulting clients at the same time to help improve this situation. But I can at least tell you what I see, tell you the right ways to do it, that I've been consulting and advising people on for half a decade, and make that into a tool where we talk about what's going on. I think what I don't have here is a set of rules. Well, there we go, rule selection. Oh, and I don't have an open, I don't have MIT license. Let's see. Let's add, create new file. Can I do? Yeah, I was going to say, I had a feeling there was a MIT, review and submit. All right. Yay, now we get the little MIT license flag. Okay. I should probably put it in the README. We'll do that later. All right, how are my agents doing? Oh, okay, view the PR. Let's see. What did it change? Thanks, man. Thanks for the star. I appreciate it. Also, subscribe and like. Like and subscribe. Everywhere. Like anything you can. Anything you can do would help. YouTube doesn't really care much about my my live streams, so I don't get a lot of people watching them, even though I've literally been doing them 8 years. 7 years. 7 years. Almost every Thursday. I would say 95 to 98% of Thursdays. All right. High findings, error. Oh. All right. So there's an error state that I didn't know about. So the question is, what color? Let's see. Oh, GitHub, come on. Give me the color. Give me the color. Okay, so that's green. That's a green color. That's red. That's orange. And this is gray. Okay. So high findings, higher critical. Okay, so high findings. So findings. Oh, error is gray. Maybe we should make error pink. What should an error color be? Either pink or black. So here, okay. So here, the orange means there's problems, high, medium, or low. But I mean, why would there be errors? No one's going to have errors. Come on. All right, so let's do pink for error. Let's just do that. So, and then what was it got down here? What is it changing? Oh, that's the test. And then oh, shoot. Why is that a part? That's a binary, a 16 meg binary. Seriously? All right, so just two files. No. I thought I deleted it. Can I not delete this from this PR? Oh, commit. Yeah. Silly PR bot. Let's see. Claude, please make Okay. So that one's good. Aquasec, Anchor, and CO knock on your door for some security training on workflows. Already subbed for over a year or so. Oh, sweet. I guess you've added by mistake. Yeah, it looks like the AI added that build because it didn't add it. My git ignore should. I have a git ignore. Yeah, because my git ignore just doesn't include anything from app bin or dist, so I'm not committing them locally. But it looks like the AI built it for some reason in the wrong directory. I don't know what it was doing. That was dumb. All right. Warning, before changing this setting, verify all workflows have explicit permission blocks. See workflow permissions rule. Changing to read only will break workflows that need write access but don't explicitly define permissions. Okay, so this is in the rules. Yeah, okay. That works. It wrote a test. And okay, so this is in the markdown. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it. Approved. Approved. I like all of it. I don't even know. I haven't even really looked at this workflow. So, yep. I like that build. Okay, so we're just testing the builds. Okay, we're not writing the files today. Okay, cool. Changed error icon color to pink. Let's check that color. That's a nice mild pink. What's my Go modules failure here? Unused parameter. Yeah. Is that an error in my code? Main lip gloss. Go modules. Let's look up superlinter. Go modules. Okay, what is it actually running though? The linting process, individual Go files. If you want to lint Go modules, validate Go modules. So they're just running. They're just running Go mod tidy. Yeah, go. Okay, I'm using Go releaser. I'm using Golang. Yeah, I don't know how to fix that error. Let's see. We're gonna have to go look at the action run. And look at the superlinting errors. Which would tell me the exact command it ran. Okay, Go modules is Golang CI lint, which I thought I was already running locally. Interesting. So I run it locally and it's fine. And this has to do, in case you're not a superlinter person, one of the problems of this is superlinter. Where did it go? One of the problems with superlinter is that each linter actually has a default config, Golang CI, version 2, linters enable. So this config is something that I need locally on my Golang CI reference. So this is the challenge of linting. Is now I'm like, do I really want to do all this? But yes, I do. Like, I want this repo to be legit. And the next thing I need to do, open OpenSSF. So have you ever heard of the OpenSSF scorecard? It's a very cool thing for open source. I wish we could make everybody go do this. So my rant earlier was around that if we're consuming all this risky open source from GitHub and NPM, and we just don't, like, we can always inspect source code, but we can't inspect the repo security itself. We can't inspect on NPM the settings that they've set in their security. We can't be sure that they're doing key rotation and OIDC. We can't be sure what security boundaries they've set on the repo. Are they even complying with standard security practices? We just have to trust them. We just don't know. And that was the problem with the Trivia attack and so many of these other ones. All these other tools that are all getting attacked are largely due, it's either one of two reasons that these places are all, the supply chain is getting attacked for two main reasons. One, successful social engineering. I can't solve that. That's a very hard problem that requires education and reduced complexity and fail-safe defaults and getting rid of, foot guns. And that's a very hard thing to solve. It's hard to prevent all social engineering. But we can solve misconfigurations. And that's what this OpenSSF scorecard is helping to do, is to look at the behaviors of how you designed this open source, not just the source code, but the things around it, and to do checks for quality of the project. And it's sort of something that you do as a good net citizen. And you add this to your repo, you get to add the badge. And the scorecard allows you all these things, all these checks. And when you're done, and there's an existing GitHub action. Where's the checks? Show me the. You get a badge. And you can put it. Badge. Does the project have a CLI best practices badge? Get your badge now. It's a way for open source projects to show they have followed best practices. Projects can voluntarily self-certify at no cost by using this web application to explain how they follow each best practice. The best practice badge is inspired by the many badges available to projects on GitHub. Some of the ones, and see, when you look at all the ones that are like doing it, I mean, it is some foundational stuff, but it's kind of like, that's it. Like, bestpractices.dev is a thing that I haven't even read through. I probably should, but we don't even know that it exists because we maybe haven't even heard about the OpenSSF scorecard. So, so another thing we're going to do with the agent, this is another issue that I need. So add a GitHub action to for open SSF. Let's see, using the GitHub action. Give me the links. Install time. You need your own repository you're installing the action to. Authenticate your access to your repository with your PAT. Add scorecard to your code scanning suite inside your code scanning suite inside GitHub using the link below. Install the action. Okay. Oh, okay. So it's showing. Okay. It's showing how I can do this myself without AI, and I sure I sure hope that their GitHub action is legit. Okay, so we're not going to do this. We're just going to do an old-fashioned manual new workflow. Oh. Workflow setup. From your GitHub projects page, click on security, click code scanning, add tool, configure scanning tool. Wow. Okay. This feels complicated. All right. Security, code scanning, enable code scanning, explore workflows, security, all these things. Open SSF. What's happening? Oh, it's not called that. Okay, open OSSF scorecard. Open OSSF. Okay. Configure. AI would have been faster. All right. Scorecard, supply chain security, branch protection rule, cron, main. Okay. Permissions. Read all. Really? Really? Read all. This is your hardcore security scanner. It's giving them read access to everything. I'm not sure I agree with that. Oh, it's giving security events, ID token. Okay. Actions checkout. That's a really old version. That's an old version. These are all old versions. Publish results. Okay. We're doing it. We're just going to do direct main. And then also what's our dependabot say? Daily, weekly. Yep. That's what I want. Okay, so we're now running the scorecard. And So I'm trying to update package manager. So I'm doing dependabot. Is it actions? Oh, what's the package manager for dependabot? I mean, isn't it? I thought it was GitHub Actions. Yeah. I don't know how I can make everything bigger. How's that? We're kind of done there anyway. Why can't I get GitHub Actions? All right, that's done. At least that's running. Yeah, I think we're done with this one. All right, what did it say? Did it do anything? Oh, yeah, because it's all old. Everything's old. So I want to run my dependabot to update all the versions because that example is wicked old, and I wish the examples would be real time. It's package ecosystem, GitHub Actions. Can it not? All right, I'm just sitting here stumbling through the CLI. GitHub Actions. Oh, you're just infuriating me. Like that is that. How is that not what it's supposed to be doing? It's supposed to be doing GitHub Actions. Let me just ask you. All right, over here, let's go back to our pull requests. Let's get those features in. Improve documentation for default workflow permissions warning. What do we fail on? What do we fail? Oh boy. Oh boy. Markdown prettier. Can I tell it to fix lints? Can I reply here? All right, we're going to kick off another agent run to try to fix those lints. Okay, so if you're not a super linter person, one of the things you need to do is, so this file is basically, I need to replicate it. And I'm trying to remember, like this config needs to go, Golang CI needs to fig. Depend about update on this clone, manual update via GH. But in here, we need to run the Golang CLI lint with a config file. So one of the problems with using, this is actually in a video I did years ago for my favorite linter, which is super linter, because it helps me just keep all my linters organized and I don't have to configure each one. And then I always forget that there's certain linters that I kind of care about, but don't really care about, but I still want them to run. So super linter does that, but it comes with a default config for each linter that you don't get to see. It's not obvious, and you don't, so what happens is when you run linters locally, everything lints fine, and then you run it through GitHub Actions, and then it fails because the config, there's these default configs that come out of the box with superlinter that you don't know about until you really understand how superlinter works. It provides all those templates so that you can clone them and basically make your own, or you can override and tell it to ignore. You can do all those things, but those are not defaults. So that's one of the reasons, like, I run the linters locally, but then my GitHub action gives me a bunch of failures and it sucks. So one of the things I want to know about the GitHub, the Golang CLI lint, is where does it expect the file to live for the config? It's usually in the root for linters, but superlinter also likes them to be in a .github directory, like .github / I think it's called linters. And I believe on my machine, I'm trying to think of what repo I might have that might have custom linters. Like, let's see, in here, I have, let's look here. There we go. So yeah, like this directory is where you can put superlinter linters. And so in here, what I want to do is what do we call it over here? This is called .golangci.yaml. I'm just going to edit it myself and put in this template. Let's see. And then now, in theory, linters, current linter configurations. Oof. Oof. Config. Okay. So oh, I see. So run Okay. I'm going to need to give this to the make file, to the AI to put in a make file. Oh, it's a lot of config options. Currency, run, flags, config, default, disable. Path. Path prefix to add to output. New. Oh, fix. It's got a fix mode. So all right, so I want to do it in this directory. How do I do it? Path prefix to add to output. Enable specific liners. Was it Golang CI or Golang CLI? Golang CI lint is the tool. And I want to run it. Linters context. Oh, I see. Golang C. Oh, I see what you're saying. The name of the YAML file. Yeah. All right. You right. Somebody's paying attention. Yeah. There's this Golang CI. Yep. Yeah. Move. Yeah, and it probably needs to, I could probably make it easier to symlink. Oh, I should have done, oh well, I should have done that command differently. All right. Let's see. Type checking error, stat. I take mine to fix. Does that work? Yeah. So it's got a whole lot of stuff. Jesus. All because I changed the default. So this is the kind of command I just give to the AI and say, go fix all these. That's a lot of fixes. And then we also, We did actually ask the AI to do that up here, didn't we? Yeah, it might have been a mistake. Let's go to the other PR. What did it do? What did it do? Fixed all the linting issues. Fixed table formatting and default workflow permission, proper spacing. Okay. You say it all pass. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if you really did what you say you did. How we got this one. Okay, so please. Yeah, I probably shouldn't do this. I probably should not do that. I should just merge it. Yep. And then over in this one, so I'm over here asking my local Claude Code to please update the makefile linting to use a custom linter config file. Yeah, let's see if it fixes that. 3 different agents all working on things at the same time. And they're all messing it up. They're all doing it wrong. But we're not looking at source today. It's a no source Thursday. All right, I'm gonna bail. Yeah, error handling in Golang can be annoying. I like that it's picky. I like Go and Rust just because I feel like there's a lot left, especially for AI. Like if I can get tests to pass and I can get linting to pass, and clearly whatever linting config this is more. It's harder than the defaults because I mean the defaults pass completely, so like I don't have an issue. So I do like writing with AI where I'm not looking at the source code, and I feel better. I feel better about it because it can so easily fail on build and fail on linting and fail in the tests much more than I feel like I can in sort of loosely dynamically typed languages. Of course, TypeScript helps a lot with JavaScript, but I also prefer Golang for CLIs. I like a single binary. I love making Docker images with a single binary in them. That makes me very happy when I can deploy single binaries instead of saying use npm, which is scary to use nowadays, to go download my app that'll also have 30 dependencies that'll actually install 500,000 files on your computer just so you can run a CLI tool. Like that's the thing that bugs me about Node stuff. And I've been a Node fan for 15 years, but once I saw Go as like static compiled binaries that can be deployed with a single file anywhere, whether it's a container or a download, like I just love that. I love that about Go. I love that it's so easy to do cross compilation across different architectures and platforms without having to use native runners. I can literally do that with the compiler, which is fantastic. I end up choosing languages nowadays based on everything other than the language features, because if the AI is just writing the languages for me, what I really care about is the package ecosystem, the bundling ecosystem, the maintenance and upkeep of that and its dependencies, and that's a lot of work in Node land. So, obviously people move to PNPM or Bun, which is great. But yeah, I'd say 80. I'd say if it's a CLI tool or a TUI, I'm using Go almost always. If it is a web app, I'm still probably using Go over Node. At this point, I just force Go to use everything, to do everything. If it's a Mac GUI, then I'm using Swift. Obviously, I'm not trying to use like Electron or anything. I use native for that. Thanks, David. See you soon. Yeah, nearly as easy to use as Python. I mean, when I don't have to write in the language anymore, I feel like the differences become so much not the language. It becomes around like performance and debugging, or the ease of the AI to debug it, and whether I can safely manage dependencies. Where Python doesn't really have a great story with the defaults that everybody uses, pip and stuff. Like those are not great dependency managers, and obviously there are newer tools that are better, but I like that everything with Go, like the module management, linting, all this stuff kind of comes out of the box, and I don't have to go find third-party packages to bolt on for the standard library. It's a great place to be. I feel kind of spoiled there, as opposed to other languages where there's a lot of challenges with packaging and dependency management and all those things, environments. Yeah, the cross compilation is fantastic. I mean, Go is the only language obviously that does that. Node does the same thing. I'm assuming Rust does the same thing. But yeah, just being able to package it up, single binary per OS. I don't need special hardware. I can just build for all the different variants at one time with a single file. Like, yeah, these are all fantastic features that I feel like every language should have out of the box. I feel like, even though we have NPX and Python technically has a bundler, but and I think even Ruby might have one. Maybe it's Python, but I think like the Python ones, technically what's happening in the background is every time you run it, it's actually extracting the files and then manually running Python. So you have this delay. You have like a half a second or more delay in running the command every time if you're trying to do a single binary deployment for Python. So there's all these just weird effects of old languages that I like with the modern languages like Go and Rust better. I might classify .NET Core as a modern language just because it was almost not a rewrite, but it was a completely different thing than old .NET Framework. So it feels like a much newer thing, and it can statically compile across compilation like that with Node. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks everybody. Go check out GASA, and I will see you on the next one. Ciao.